Imagine building something with your bare hands. Something so powerful, so essential, that an entire nation depends on it every single day. You wake up before dawn, you pour your sweat into it, you give it decades of your life, you raise your children on the wages it pays. And then one morning you show up to work and the gates are locked. A piece of paper taped to the fence says the factory is closing. No warning, no explanation, no goodbye. This is not a story from a distant country. This is America, and it happened to millions of real people. To understand what was lost, you first have to understand what was built. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, a stretch of America from Pennsylvania to Illinois became the most powerful industrial region on Earth. Pittsburgh made steel, Detroit made cars, Cleveland made everything in between. Gary, Indiana had blast furnaces that lit up the night sky. Youngstown, Ohio was pumping out more steel than most entire countries combined. These were not just factories, they were the engine of American power. When World War II broke out, it was these factories that saved democracy. The tanks, the planes, the ships that defeated Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, built right here, in these cities, by these workers. After the war, the good times rolled. A steel worker in Pittsburgh could buy a house, raise 3 kids, send them to college, and retire with a pension. An auto worker in Detroit could afford a car, a vacation, and a Sunday afternoon in the backyard. This was the American dream, and in the Rust Belt, it was not a dream. It was real life. Then the 1970s arrived, and everything began to change. Factories in Japan and Germany, rebuilt after the war with modern equipment, started producing steel and cars cheaper and faster. Then came China, Mexico, every country where labor cost nothing and workers had no rights. American corporations looked at the numbers, looked at their profits, and made a decision. They packed up the factories, and they left. September 19, 1977, a date burned into the memory of every Rust Belt worker. In Youngstown, Ohio, the Campbell Works Mill steel mill announced it was closing. 5,000 workers lost their jobs in a single day. They called it Black Monday. And Black Monday did not stop in Youngstown. It spread like fire across the entire region. Between 1969 and 1996, manufacturing employment in the Rust Belt declined by nearly 33%. That is not a statistic. That is millions of families losing everything they had built. Detroit, once the proud Motor City, collapsed. At its peak, Detroit had nearly 2 million people. Today, it has less than 600,000. Entire neighborhoods abandoned, houses left standing with furniture still inside, schools emptied with textbooks still on the desks. In Flint, Michigan, by 2013, there were 6,000 vacant buildings. 6,000 in a single American city. Flint lost half its population as General Motors employment collapsed from 80,000 jobs to just over 7,000. These were not numbers. These were people, American people. When a factory closes in a small town, it does not just take the jobs, it takes everything. Tax revenue disappears, so the schools get worse. Schools get worse, so families leave. Families leave, so the stores close. Stores close, so the young people leave. And the cycle never stops. What fills the void? Despair fills the void. The opioid crisis did not randomly fall on America. It landed hardest in the exact communities where the factories had closed, where men who had defined themselves as workers, as providers, as the backbone of their families, suddenly had nothing to wake up for. Bruce Springsteen wrote a song about Youngstown. Billy Joel wrote Allentown about the steel towns of Pennsylvania. These were not political songs. They were eulogies, songs for communities that America had decided to stop caring about. And where was the government? Politicians came to the Rust Belt every 4 years, election season. They shook hands at diners, they visited shuttered factories, they made promises, jobs coming back, new industries, investment, hope. Then the election ended, the politicians went home, and nothing changed. For decades, nothing changed. Here is the hardest truth of all. Germany faced the same deindustrialization, the same cheap overseas competition, the same pressure to close factories and move production. Nearly half of German industrial cities successfully recovered. In the United States, only 17%. The difference was not luck. Germany invested in its workers, retrained them, rebuilt their communities, gave them a future. America told them to figure it out themselves. Today, some Rust Belt cities are slowly rebuilding. Pittsburgh has reinvented itself around healthcare and technology. Cleveland has new industries taking root. But for every Pittsburgh success story, there are dozens of Youngstowns still waiting for the jobs that were promised, still waiting for someone to care, still waiting for America to come back for the people it left behind. They built America with their hands, with their lives, with their families, and America left them behind. That is not a political statement. That is simply what happened, and it deserves to be said out loud. This has been Unsaid America. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The most important stories are the ones nobody's telling. Subscribe, and we'll keep telling them.